The alarm on the pediatric ICU monitor refused to stop screaming, and Dr. Lena Kessler's voice trembled when she said there was nothing left to try. The young girl on the hospital bed, a petite 9-year-old with tangled brown hair, was fading fast. Her only chance now was a rare blood type, one so uncommon that the doctor called it a miracle if we find a match today. Outside, in the hallway where desperation smelled like bleach and fear, a corporate titan paced back and forth, pressing his trembling hands together, silently praying to a god he wasn't even sure he believed in. His daughter was dying. Time was against them. And somewhere in the city, without knowing it, a man was about to give more than blood. He was about to give forgiveness and a second chance to someone who had taken everything from him. That if you believe in kindness, redemption, and the power of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts to keep stories like this alive. The man's name was Mason Rudd. He was used to long days, dirty hands, and coffee that tasted like gasoline. Mason was a single father, raising his son Jace alone in a small apartment above a repair shop where he worked. Life had not handed him grace. It had handed him unpaid bills, grief, and long nights wondering how he would afford another school year. But despite everything, Mason never complained. He never forgot that happiness, even in scraps, could be enough. He spent evenings helping his son with homework at the kitchen table that was always sticky from spilled juice. Their laughs echoed like music even when the refrigerator made that awful humming noise Mason still couldn't fix. Mason didn't know much wealth, but he knew loyalty, and he knew pain. Several years earlier, when things were more stable, Mason had worked as a contractor for a high-end business firm. He remembered the cold glass lobby, the shiny floor, and the woman with sharp eyes who looked at him like dirt. Her name was Alana Dare, the daughter of a billionaire CEO, never seen without her tailored clothes and flawless smile. Alana mocked him once in front of an entire boardroom. She made a cruel joke about his charity case life, called him warehouse trash, humiliated him until he left the building with a box of his tools and a heart so crushed he refused to look back at the skyline for months. He never forgot the sound of laughter behind him as he walked out. It was the day he learned how small people could make you feel when they were too big in their own minds. Years passed, and he never heard from that company again. Life took him somewhere humbler, somewhere real. He didn't hate her, not after everything he had been through. But he carried that moment inside him like a bruise that never faded. One bright afternoon, Mason was donating blood at a clinic, something he did whenever he could. He didn't have much, but giving blood made him feel useful, like maybe his struggle could mean something to someone else. He sat in that blue chair, warm sunlight coming through the large window, thinking of his son waiting at home, thinking of dinner, thinking of nothing important. He didn't know a hospital across town was collapsing in panic because a child's life was in seconds, not hours territory. Nurses rushed, phones buzzed, databases searched, and then a match appeared. A perfect match. Type O negative with a rare antigen pattern. The nurse reading the result whispered, "We found someone. We found a donor." Moments later, Mason was being told his blood could save a little girl. He nodded without even hearing details. His answer was simple. Yes. Inside the hospital waiting room, Alana Dare was shaking. It was her niece, Arabella, lying unconscious. And the CEO pacing in fear was Alana's older brother, Corbin, stern and powerful. But this situation turned him into nothing more than a terrified father. Alana felt guilt thread through her chest like wire, because this little girl wasn't sick by accident. Her rare condition had been developing for months, and Alana had ignored all the signs, too distracted by meetings, mergers, her polished life where everything was perfect except her heart. When the donor was brought into the room to rest, Alana walked past the thick hospital glass and saw him. At first, she only recognized the build, the jawline, the calm posture. Then he turned slightly, and the past hit her all at once. Her stomach dropped, her skin went cold, and shame stabbed her so sharply she gasped aloud that it was him. The man she mocked. Mason Rudd. Her first instinct was denial. No, it couldn't be. He wouldn't be here, not after what she did. But the room was too bright, too real. She pressed her hand against the glass like she was holding herself up in a storm. She remembered every word she said to him that day in the skyscraper office. The memory played like a recording she could never shut off. Mason glanced up, saw her through the window, and for a second, their eyes locked. It was brief, but it had weight. She looked shocked. He simply nodded, tired yet steady. There was no bitterness in him, not anymore. He had faced harder things than her pride. Arabella received the transfusion. The blood worked. The doctors stabilized her, the color returning to her face like sunrise. Corbin hugged the doctor and cried openly, no longer caring who saw. Nurses clapped. Someone whispered, "That man just saved her." Alana stood quietly in the corner, her world cracking open. She wanted to speak to Mason, to apologize, to explain. But he was already getting ready to leave, arm taped, filling out paperwork with a thoughtful ease, like saving a child's life was just another day. She rushed forward. But Mason walked calmly toward the exit, not in avoidance, but with the peace of someone who had already let go of old pain long ago. She called out, but no word came, the guilt closing her throat. For days Arabella recovered, laughing and eating ice cream, while Alana sank into a silence she could no longer escape. She thought about who she had become, successful, admired, feared, but not kind, not human. And that realization hurt more than anything. Finally, she found Mason's contact information from the clinic, and she went to see him at his workshop. It wasn't a dramatic scene. The air smelled like oil and sawdust. Mason was fixing a broken generator when she walked in wearing sweatpants and a hoodie instead of her usual perfect armor. She looked smaller, younger, human. She apologized, not with fancy speeches, not with business language, but with a trembling voice and tears that slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. She said she never forgot how cruel she was and how shame lived inside her since. She said Arabella's second chance felt like her second chance too, and she didn't deserve either. Mason listened. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he simply said, "I forgave you a long time ago. Life is too short to hold on to poison." His voice was soft, and in that moment Alana realized forgiveness was not weakness. Sometimes it was the only strength that mattered. Their lives did not suddenly become perfect. Mason still worked long hours. Alana still battled her own regrets. But they stayed in touch, slowly rebuilding something that looked like compassion. Mason brought Jace to visit Arabella, and the two kids played together until their laughter filled the hospital hallway where fear once lived. In time, Corbin sent a letter, handwritten, offering funding for Mason's repair shop to expand. Mason accepted, not because he wanted repayment, but because opportunity like that meant a better life for his son. Alana began volunteering at pediatric wings, holding the hands of families whose days looked like the longest ones of their lives. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts to support more emotional stories every week. Before you go, comment below, do you believe one act of kindness can change more than one life? Mason never wanted recognition. But one day he passed by the hospital again and saw Arabella holding a card she made. It said, in messy crayon handwriting, "Thank you for my second chance." And beneath it, a child's drawing of a smiling man with a bandage on his arm. Mason folded the paper and slipped it into his jacket pocket, close to his heart, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, hope. And in that bright afternoon light, it was clear that sometimes the greatest healing doesn't come from medicine, but from mercy. Thank you for watching Bright Hearts.